do is take you guys on a workshop, right, and see if I can show you guys some of these key components associated with this. Shane, can you confirm you can see my AWS console?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I can.
All right, so I am in AWS console. I'm gonna go into, let's go to Central. Here, you will go under the area of networking and content delivery. Here you can see there's a VPC. You click on VPC, it takes you here, right? So I think I have 5 VPCs already created. Let's see, here it is, right? So these were all my AWS class that I did. So if I click on, for example, this one, you can see there's a routing table defined. This is the VPC ID. You would need this ID if you are, remember in the earlier part of this session, I talked about different ways of accessing it. For example, using the SDKs, right, software development kit, or using the CLI, command line interface. So when you're actually accessing through the CLI or maybe through the code, you would need this VPC ID if you want to do something with that VPC. So this is where you would need it. The state available. This is the IP address range, right? So when I was creating the VPC, I give then IP address range of /16, meaning 65,000 IP address range. It's not using IP6 protocol. Network ACL, again, this comes by default, where you can define what needs to be blocked. DHCP is options, again, for the host configuration. This is owned by, you can ignore all that stuff. Routing table, again, this is the default routing table that gets associated with it, okay? Let me just go ahead and create a VPC so you guys can see it. Okay, I'm gonna give it a tag, IP, okay, so now this is where you would actually define the IP address range, right? So if I define 16, so basically it is giving me the range of IP4 addresses for your VPC insider block, for example, 10.0024, block size must be between 16 and 28, right? So this is the range that you can define. So I'm defining at 16. No IP6 required. Tenancies default, you can leave all of that stuff as is. Create. Oh, I have already created, yes. Now this is a good test because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember I talked about 5 IPCs that can be created in one region. So let me just go ahead and delete this one. Everything else below this VPC will be deleted. Okay, hopefully now I should be able to create that. So webinar VPC. At 10.0.0.0.16, default, create. There we go. So this VPC is created. Let's go here. And here's my VPC. Okay, now if I go in here, notice that there's a routing table by default got created, then the main network ACL list got created, right? So here it is. And let's look at the CIDR IP address. This is 10.0.0.0.16. That is by default, no IP6 because I don't need that. Let's go back here and let's see what other actions. So if you want to edit the IP address range, you can add more IP address range. Okay, let's look at the ACL. So this is the ACL. So here you can go ahead and define your inbound rules. Right, so this is allow or deny, right? So you can define, okay, for example, this is the IP address that's not going to be coming in. You can define this by creating edit inbound. You define the rule, add a rule. Okay, so you can say 110, whatever, custom rule. So all traffic, UDP, datagram protocol, SSH. So if you're blocking something, then you can say, okay, deny, I'm gonna deny all of this. And then you define the IP address, right? So you can say any IP address range from, 10.0.0.1 / 16, anything that is in between that range, I want to block it, right? Or you can specify a specific IP address and say, okay, this IP address is not allowed. So you can define that in this area. Okay, let me just delete this. So this is your inbound. Outbound, again, what traffic is allowed, you can go ahead and define that as well. Subnet Association, we haven't covered that. I'll show you in a second how to create your subnets. Let's go back. And okay, let's go back to the VPC. Here's my VPC. Okay, and now let's look at the routing table, what we got in the routing table. So the routing table is, again, it has certain rules, right? So this is associated with this VPC, as you can see. Route every single traffic, 10.0016, all of the range coming in is routed through this routing table, and it is active. Subnet Association. Now, again, we haven't created the subnets yet, but if you create the subnets, then you can associate the subnets with this routing table, right? And let's see, you can edit subnet association. Okay, let's jump to these subnets for a second. So these are the subnets I've already created before. Now let's go ahead and create a new subnet. Okay. You can type in any tag, right? And it always try to create a tag because it allows you to associate the asset that you're creating with a specific environment, for example, dev environment, QA, or HR, or the groups. So this way you can find out the billing, right, for each department or each environment. It becomes very handy. The VPC, so you're creating a subnet. If you remember in the diagram I was showing you earlier, within a VPC you have created, I've created separate subnet 1 and 2. Now I'm creating a subnet. So if I go and create, assign the VPC, so this is the VPC we just created, which is the webinar VPC. Now availability zone, no preference. If you want to leave that as default, that's fine. This is the range. Don't want to pick the oh, sorry. So 10.0.0. There you go. So I just created that VPC subnet within that VPC. So here it is. Okay, so this is a subnet that I created inside of the VPC, and the routing table is, again, is associated with the same routing table, which is part of the VPC. Okay, now if I go to my routing table, you can see this subnet is associated with this, okay? Modify auto assign and edit network XO routing table association. So this is the routing ID, and again, if you need to access the subnet from your AWS, as from your CLI or from your SDK, then you would actually need this routing table ID. So what exactly did we do so far, right? So let me just jump over here and go back here. So all I did was basically created this VPC right here, and I created a subnet, right? And this routing table was already part of it. It was already created for us, so we don't really have to do this. The Internet Gateway default was created and associated with this. We just created this, and we provided this IP address range, okay? So this is what we have done so far, okay? Now, what we can do is cancel this. Now, if you want to launch that EC2 instance within this VPC, what do you need to do is basically you go back, go to the EC2 compute section. You see running instances, okay? We can launch an instance, for example, create a launch instance, free tier, select general purpose.